Power Breakfast. Top talk of the morning.
The time is 7:13. You're on Power Breakfast this morning with Tessa Dooms. And as we talk about driving change in our society, we have been talking a few times in the last few months about safety in this country, crime in this country, and particularly amongst young people. You've heard me lament a few times about my concerns about what's happening in my hometown of El Dorado Park when it comes to gun violence and assaults, and particularly around young people, school-going age, even at schools. We've seen shootings, we've seen assaults, we've seen children dying in that community, and I really believe something needs to be done. So luckily, yesterday we saw the Department of Basic Education and the Minister of Police, the Ministry of Police, come together and say they are putting forward a platform, a protocol, and a set of ideas around how do we make schools safer when it comes to things like gun violence and assaults. Very grateful for an initiative like this because I think it is timely and absolutely necessary. So from the Department of Basic Education this morning, we have Mhlanga, who is the spokesperson, just to speak to us about this initiative that has been raised from the side of the Ministers of Basic Education and Police. And we also have Equal Education's comms manager, Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell, who is going to be speaking from the point of view of civil society, just saying what is it that particularly the civil society sector working in education think of the move that has been made now to make our schools safer. Elijah, I'll start with you. Welcome to Power Breakfast. Just give us the details of what is being proposed.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Well, let me start by saying that this is not a new one. It's just a refreshed one with additional items that we're adding now because we are seeing that the social ills that are taking place affecting young people are continuing. And whatever we thought back in 2011 when we signed the protocol with the police to link police stations to school did not work. We need a lot more work to happen. So this is just the first step really in mobilizing the whole of society to work with us. It would be an error to expect that this protocol is going to solve all the problems. In fact, we need a parent community, we need leaders, we need the young people themselves, we need everyone to come on board.
And what are some of the specific inclusions now in this new version of the protocol that you think will make it at least more effective? And we'll talk a little bit about the whole of society approach as well. But what are the additions that you've made in the protocol itself?
We need to revise the standard operating procedures in terms of what schools do when an incident occurs and what steps the police are going to take when they have been called to assist. But we are also going to make sure that we come together and be visible together and convey the same message to South Africans that as the police and education, we are condemning violence. We're saying a zero-tolerance approach to it. That being our position, we then need the support of everyone else to come on board. But there are also other matters, such as sexual offenses, where we need the specialist experts from the police so that they're able to interact with the system to obtain evidence that will ensure that we secure convictions and that those that would have perpetrated the offenses are dealt with in the courts and are sent to jail where this is needed. But first prize is for good behavior among people, young people in particular, especially the conduct that in school indicates that which they're taught. And to us, if we were to strengthen that part, we wouldn't need the police that much.
Yeah, so we do have to have a process around prevention and not just around response. And I think that's the big shift in this protocol, because before it was really focused on the response of the police rather than a preventative strategy. Of course, on the line with us as well, Equal Education's comms manager, Ayanda. Thank you for joining the conversation as well. As Equal Education, you have, I think already in 2023, started to raise this issue quite sharply about a need for an intervention here. We are seeing that even when you talk about, so gun violence is one of the issues, but even when you talk about issues around gender-based violence and rape, we are seeing that schools are reporting high levels of learner-to-learner assaults as well. Do you as Equal Education think that this protocol in the form that it's taken before and now with these strengthened measures goes far enough to start to resolve those issues?
Thank you very much to the Power FM listeners for having us on the radio today. I believe that, honestly, the protocol currently as it stands right now is not enough. What we are missing is a holistic approach. I haven't heard the Department of Education speak about social workers, about educational psychologists, about the communities in which the schools are living in. If we fix the communities and the environments in which children and learners are living in, then we will be able to fix the violence that is currently taking place in schools. We have instances where learners are being attacked. We have in the Western Cape children who are being slain while they're walking on the way to school. In KZN, we have instances where children are walking 10 to 15 kilometers, and that in and of itself is dangerous and violent. And then if norms and standards are not met in schools, the infrastructure is not sound in schools, then how are those schools going to be safe for learners? And so if norms and standards are met, if children are actually living in safe environments and safe communities, then it will be able to fix the violence that is currently happening in schools. We have a report called Safety Ngoku from Equal Education, and it highlights the issues that children are facing, the violence, the instances of bullying, and how that is connected to the communities in which children are living in. And really, the situation is dire in some communities, especially in schools that are quintile 1, 2, and 3. And so if we're able to fix this from a holistic approach, then it is something that I think will be able to work. But it's not just about having police involvement. The Department of Social Development has to be involved. Like I said before, social workers need to be involved. We need to make sure that educational psychologists are involved. We need to make sure that sociologists are involved as well, so that communities are actually given the tools and the resources to pick themselves up, to make sure that there are green spaces, make sure that there are extramural activities as well that children can partake in, to move away and make sure that they make the right choices against violence.
Sure. And Elijah, you were pointing to some of that earlier when you were saying we need a whole of society approach, and Ayanda saying that that should be part of the interventions that come from the department itself. And so how can the department make sure that, for example, SGBs get involved here in a more active way, that we have the Department of Social Development bringing in social workers, that there is a community-led approach, even with the Department of Social Development or the Department of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation, so that we have those spaces that divert young people's activities away from gangsterism or crime or violence towards more productive and instructive ways of engaging.
Yeah, there's one of the things that we must not do is to portion blame towards another stakeholder grouping, especially when we have a conversation such as this one. I can give many examples that will indicate that without cooperation, there's a teacher who was killed in Tembisa. The school is fine, but the criminals waited for her outside the school, and then they shot her. It's been 4 years now. No one has since been arrested. The trauma the learners are living with. And the criminals are just roaming the street, even as we speak. That is a matter of society that needs to be dealt with as such. The protocol that was signed yesterday takes place within the context of the school safety framework. And that school safety framework calls upon everyone to be part of this effort. Among those is the Department of Social Development, the police, community leadership. We cannot list all those stakeholders, but everyone really needs to play a part. So social workers, they're there, but they are not enough as well to solve all the problems that are happening in the home.
Then what is the way we get that?
You have a teacher who tells us that the child that they have in class, their parents are drug addicts. How can a social worker help in that situation when the learner goes back to the same problem that she comes from in the morning? So this matter is complex. Let's rather work together to find solutions to eradicating violence in our society, because expecting that the police will resolve it in the school, whereas the entire community is suffering from the same violence, it's unrealistic. So let's work together and find a way to deal with because it's the same children who bring guns to school, who consume drugs during the breaks, which are sold in the vicinity of the school.
I guess, Elijah, what can we do as the communities? How do we contribute towards the efforts of the various departments? Because it does seem that the departments act on their own. They're acting there, with protocols and with interventions. But who engages us as the society and tells us what our contribution can be? If a mother is saying in their home that they are working a job that doesn't allow them to be present for their children, and so they don't know what's happening with their children on a day-to-day basis, surely there's some way that we as society can and should be getting involved. But what are the mechanisms that government can use to enable that?
No, it doesn't start with government. It starts with you, the parent. If you take your child to a school, you need to be able to go to the school, check on her progress, academically and socially. When you are invited to meetings, attend those meetings.
Sure.
School governing body elections don't happen at the first instance because parents don't attend those meetings. So the low participation of parents is a huge issue as well. And where this is addressed, you see an improvement. So parents need to take the first step, getting actively involved in the education of their children. That is very important. That's one way of dealing with this matter, because some parents, by the way, when schools report that their children have committed a certain offense or have been found with drugs or knives or they're fighting in school, when the schools call them, you find that they defend their children even before they know what their children have done, until a video is shown of what their children have done. So those are some of the things that we really need to think about as well. That's what I'm saying. It's a complex issue. We shouldn't be blaming one another. We should be saying, what is it that we need to do as society to change the way we raise our children, but also the way we behave as adults, because it is us who are teaching these kids when we are protesting for service delivery, the violence, the looting, the everything that we do, the children emulate and do, and then we act shocked that we didn't know they are behaving in that way when in fact we taught the lessons.
A whole of society approach. I think both Elijah and Mhlanga from the Department of Basic Education and Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell have from Equal Education have asked us for a whole of society approach when it comes to making sure that our schools are safer. Thank you so much to both of you for elevating this conversation.